Now, as we meet to discuss our plans for our industry, our ambitions for the future, our first thoughts are, as Katie said, with those whose ambitions are to survive the day. Those for whom perhaps tomorrow is the furthest future they can imagine. And that is, of course, the people of Ukraine. As an industry and individually, we stand with them. Our job is to do what we can to help them prevail, and in our way, to help them, to give them the best world in which to prevail. The humanitarian crisis that you see every night on the news is stark, and the economic headwinds that the industry and society face are bleak. But we will do and are doing what is right. Now that means economic sacrifices, sacrifices beyond sanctions. More broadly, deepening our commitment to a cleaner world. That means decarbonisation, new technologies, hydrogen, electrification. As manufacturers, I think we have a good tale to tell. We have put our money where our future is. More than £10.8 billion have been invested in British electric car, van, bus, truck, battery production since 2011. That's more than £1 billion for every year of our first electric decade, creating jobs and wealth across the country, driving down CO2 emissions to record lows. Globally, the industry is investing billions, potentially £400 billion in decarbonisation, money to be spent by 2030. Go back 10 years, there were 6 electric car models available, and they accounted for about 1 in 1,700 registrations in the UK. Today there are 140, another 55 coming this year. 1 in 6 cars, 1 in 28 vans bought in the UK is now an electric vehicle. So the consumer has choice and increasingly the confidence to buy. But that confidence is nothing if the same consumer doesn't have the confidence to charge. Range anxiety has largely been solved. Charging anxiety, however, is now what we see as the biggest obstacle. Now, government is regulating the transition for our industry, regulating a market that is already moving, and it's tough regulation. 2035 will see the end of sale of non-zero emission cars and vans. 5 years later, the end of sale of carbon neutrality for trucks and buses. This year, we'll see introduced a zero emission mandate that will seek to underscore the pace of that change. Now, we've said from the outset, our industry is up for this challenge. But we cannot deliver for society without perhaps another regulation, a regulation about the right to charge. UK is making good progress with rapid chargers. It actually leads the Western world in high-speed charging, but not quite the whole world. Japan, South Korea, China are all better. The gap, however, is growing. UK electric vehicle demand is surging, up 320% between only 2019 and 2021, yes, during the pandemic. But over the same period, the number of standard chargers rose by a quarter of that rate and rapids by just a fifth. Hence, the customer's experience is declining. So instead of levelling up, we're actually widening that gap. In 2020, there was 1 charger for every 37 vehicles in the north of England, 1 for 26 in the south. By last year, that had moved to 1 for 30 in the south, but 1 for every 52 in the north. Now, we all know that early electric vehicle adopters tend to be older, more affluent individuals, own more than 1 car, and the EV they buy is often a company car. And crucially, they usually have a driveway. Yet a third of households does not have either a driveway or designated parking space. If they are going to choose an EV, we need to give them somewhere to charge it. So to meet our targets, we need to meet their needs and to meet the needs of businesses. If you think about commercial vehicle operators, HGV hauliers and so forth, for them it's not so much the charging infrastructure is inadequate, it's often non-existent. We need it to be there to get these new vehicles into the UK. So the race to plug that gap is now on. So that's why we've been calling for a national charging plan, a plan to get the right chargers in the right places ahead of need, ensuring that everyone is ready for the switch. So we're calling for binding targets on infrastructure to match those imposed on us, the vehicle industry, for all stakeholders to play and be enabled to play their part. So we've called for a new regulator body, Ofcharge, to monitor the market, price levels, affordability, and enforce standards, bringing the interests of drivers, charge point operators, energy companies, and local authorities together as one. As Henry Ford said, if everyone moves forward together, success takes care of itself. And that success looks like this. A UK car park comprising 9.3 million electric vehicles by 2030. Double that to 18.4 million vehicles by 2035. That would be half of all the vehicles on the road. This helps ensure that road transport plays its part in the UK becoming the first major economy to be net zero. And I stress economy, as this transmission must support economic growth, industrial growth, and yes, automotive growth. We entered 2022 with the car market still down at pandemic levels. Production is also a third lower than where it was in 2019, and the headwinds continue. Raw materials prices at a record high, supply chain shortages, heightened logistic costs and delays, rocketing energy costs that were already amongst the highest in Europe. And of course, we've got a new relationship with Europe with new obligations, and coming with that, unfortunately, some additional costs. So our cost base is, as manufacturers, increasing massively, exacerbated by the war in Ukraine and its impacts, increasing inflation, tightening the belt not just of businesses but of consumers away. So we are not yet in recovery. Times are tough, but now is not the time to turn away from investment or economic growth and resilience. And you're seeing that investment, as I said, I mentioned 10.8 billion. Some of that is in battery gigafactories. And for the UK, capacity will rise from just 2 gigawatt hours to potentially 41 gigawatt hours by 2027. Great strides from a standing start. But we need more. We should be at 60 gigawatts by 2030 to remain competitive as a global manufacturing base with a strong, innovative supply chain. So we must be competitive. We must reduce the cost base. Energy tends to be our second biggest input cost after labour and leaving aside the bill of materials. UK on energy costs are actually a deterrent to that investment. They undermine our competitiveness. And the energy demands of electrification, production and use are going to get greater. So we share government's ambition for a lower carbon, more secure energy sector, and we look forward to future announcements on that. Soon, the government will publish its infrastructure strategy. We see that as a chance to plug the gap between ambition and delivery, to unlock investment across all sectors and drive collaboration to deliver a world-class charging network. Now, I know attention today will also be focused elsewhere. The Chancellor will be giving his spring statement. Again, an opportunity to mitigate the impact of some of these global pressures on UK businesses and especially UK households. So with bold investment, policies that bring all stakeholders together, government can reset the sails and help us harness those headwinds. By working together, investing together, we can supercharge the market, future-proof our manufacturing, and create a greener, cleaner, electrified future for all. Thank you very much.